السلام
Assalamualaikum.
وعليكم السلام.
Please. Assalamualaikum warahmatullah.
وعليكم السلام.
Continue with what you were saying, please.
وأواصل تعليق الأستاذ عطاء المجيب راشد، وهو أن المرء من هذه يقول هذه الطريقة الإسلامية الصحيحة للدعاء والتقرب من الله سبحانه وتعالى تعطينا ذلك اليقين بأن دعاءنا لن يذهب أدراج الرياح، ولكن لما يكون الإنسان موقنا خلال دعائه. وأرانا الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم الطقوس الصحيحة والطريقة الصحيحة التي ندعو بها. يقول الأستاذ عطاء المجيب راشد: هذا يذكرني بالدعاء الذي كان قاله حضرة موسى عليه السلام لما التجأ إلى ظل تلك الشجرة وأعرب عن ما يدور في خاطره وما يدور في قلبه، أنه مهما أنزل الله سبحانه وتعالى له من خيرات لا زال بحاجة لأكثر من ذلك، أو كي يكفيه الله سبحانه وتعالى كل جميع حاجياته. وذلك لا يدل أنه يريد خيرات أكثر، ولكن كي يؤكد الله سبحانه وتعالى أنه يطلب فقط منه ولا يحتاج إلى أي مصادر دنيوية أخرى.
Today you are lucky not to have any rival, huh? Please.
There was a second question for Mr. Reis first. Surah 39, chapter 39, verse 7.
It is the same verse which was recited yesterday, and it is from Surah Zumar, verse number 7. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم خلقكم من نفس واحدة ثم جعل منها زوجها وأنزل لكم من الأنعام ثمانية أزواج يخلقكم في بطون أمهاتكم خلقا من بعد خلق في ظلمات ثلاث ذلكم الله ربكم له الملك لا إله إلا هو فأنا تصرفون.
So can you explain to us what is meant by Dhulumat?
Translation?
Yes. The translation is: He created you from a single being, then from her mate.
Yes.
He created.
From that,
from her,
he created her mate.
And he was sent down for you of the cattle 8 pairs. He creates you in the wombs of your mothers, creation after creation, through 3 stages of darkness. This is Allah your Lord. His is the kingdom. There is no God but He. Whither then you are being turned away.
What is meant by Dhulumat in Salata, in threefold darkness?
But why don't you inquire first why the An'am are being sent? Different pairs. How many pairs? 8 partners होंगे ना बीच में?
8 pairs.
8 pairs.
Yeah.
Which pairs? Can you count them? Camel, sheep,
Yes.
and goat, of course, included in that, and cows or buffaloes.
Yes. Here the footnote says special reference in the words 8 pairs of cattle is to the pairs of goat, sheep, camel and the ox mentioned in chapter 6 verse 144, perhaps because they are animals of daily use for men.
So there are 4 mentioned,
Yes.
and because each has 2 partners, so that is why it said 8. Samaniyat azwaj, including the number of partners, male, female, and so on. So why didn't you inquire about how the cattle could descend from heaven? Your question should begin with that, shouldn't it? Hello, Munir Ode. Thank you for coming at last. We were missing you like anything. MashaAllah. So now we're talking of the same verse which was referred to by him earlier, in which Allah mentions that we cause to descend 8 pairs of cattle, and the second thing which you inquired about, Fizulumat as child was given. this is a verse which has been often quoted by me to indicate that those things which are shown by the Holy Quran to have descended from heaven, whom Allah caused to descend, they do not descend, but they grow out of this earth. So the word descent does not mean a physical descent, but it must have a very special connotation, because about no other animals Allah has said in the Quran that we cause them to descend. Show me one place where Allah says that we caused lions to descend, we caused deer to descend, or horses to descend, and so on. Not horses, they are partly cattle, but other animals, scorpions, snakes, etc., they are never referred to as having descended. So why pick out cattle alone? This is the most important question which relates to this issue. So first of all, shall we begin with
This verse again. The detail of these.
No, the two points I said we should raise and discuss.
The first is Samaniyat Azwaj,
That's the first.
and the second is Sulumat and Salas.
That's right. So we should begin to discuss this Samaniya Azwaj. If you study the Quran carefully, you cannot fail to notice, I hope not, that wherever the word descent is used with reference to any of Allah's creation or favors to mankind, it always indicates that of all the class, of all the members of this class, this member which has been referred to as having descended is the best, without a shadow of doubt. And this is highly important for us to understand the position of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam among prophets. Among animals, which animals have done the best service for mankind? Tell me. The cattle. If you remove them from participation in life, man would be sent back, hurled back, thousands of years before or even beyond. Because all cultivation was done by the cattle, milk obtained by the cattle, meat obtained by the cattle, and journeys of long distances with heavy loads by the cattle. So if you remove them from playing a part in the advancement of human life, nothing will be left, and we may not reach the age when we could invent automobiles and things ourselves. We have reached here with the help of the animals. So it's a beautiful reference to them in the Holy Quran, which says that they were sent by God, sent down by God. And no other animal is mentioned like this. So the blind atheists, if they read just this, they have to believe in God, because they can draw this conclusion most certainly. This is the conclusion they should draw. It's a strange book. No human could have written this book, because this was not explained why this was done. It was left to thinkers. And when they think, there is a very definite link between all the words which mention anything having descended from heaven by God. You understand? So that much for the cattle. Water is mentioned to have descended, right? And without it, life was not possible. among all the minerals, iron is mentioned to have descended. So for the progress of human civilization and scientific progress of man, iron played the most essential role and still plays the most essential role. Without iron, scientific advancement could not be possible, or mechanical know-how, and employing that know-how to scientific advancement was not possible. Iron is essential in everything. Everything we make, iron is essential. So why just iron and no other metal being mentioned in the Quran with reference to their descent from heaven? Have you ever read anywhere that caused copper to descend, we caused gold to descend, we caused silver to descend? Apparently, if any metal or mineral should have been respected by a man of that age, it should have been gold, it should have been silver. You could say we caused the gold to descend or silver to descend in this, so on, so forth. Just the iron. Search the whole Quran, no other metal is mentioned. And then the Holy Quran goes on speaking of other things which are caused to be descended. Among humans, the Holy Quran mentions only Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Among all the humans and all the prophets, it is just Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam who is mentioned as having been caused to descend, whom Allah caused to descend. So this verse which you have raised has a very important point right in the beginning. And now we can understand the position of Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam among humans and prophets of God. As cattle occupies the central position in all the millions of species created by God, so also iron can be explained to have been mentioned out of hundreds of minerals and different forms of things which have been created by Allah. They were specifically chosen. And each is the sovereign in its class. Each is the most central to its class. So, having understood this, we can draw this conclusion safely, and anyone should, that Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam was caused to descend means that of all the humans and all the prophets of Allah, he occupied the central position and the highest position, the most elevated position. Right? So this verse which you have quoted contains this very important verse, and you didn't ask any question about it. But the question you asked was in relation to Salasa Zulumat. There are three covers of darkness in which human embryo prospered. What are those covers? Metaphorically speaking, they could be other covers, but literally speaking, they are the covers of the body around the uterus. And the cover of the uterus around the special sac, which is called placenta, I think is the cord which connects, let's say, the body of the uterus. I've said first the body of the mother which carries the uterus, then the uterus. Then I think you're right, it is the inner portion in which the child prospers, is called placenta, and it is the cord which connects placenta with the navel of the mother. So there are 3 covers, right? Now, how in that age could any man imagine that the embryo is brought up and flourishes under 3 covers? Nobody could. Because at that time, human knowledge of how child was nourished within the uterus was not known to the mankind. Only there is one possibility perhaps, that when placenta was discharged, then everybody came to know. But why Salasa Zulumat? When you concentrate on that issue, then you realize that this reference is not by an ordinary man. This reference could have been only by God. Because these 3 things mentioned as covers of darkness indicate that at each stage there is threat to life. Otherwise, they could not have been shown as darkness. So first of all, the human body which gives birth to the embryo is all the time in danger of not producing the right sort of cells. So that is the first darkness. For the human body to follow a set pattern whereby male sperms and female ovaries and their eggs are created, this is dependent for its perfect exercise on so many factors as cannot be enumerated here. But for the genetic cells responsible for preservation of species, as far as they are concerned, they are very complicated internal mechanism or machinery or division, which at every step is threatened by mishaps. So it's amazing that a child is born, because the mishap at the very initial stages was not a chance, but that dominated the thing. And it was just a chance, apparently, if there is no God, that by chance the whole thing was completed and designed, and that design was implemented into realities of life. It's difficult for me to explain all this because my viewers are mostly unaware of scientific facts. But they should believe me that the first cover, that is that of body, contains all the intricacies which warrant mishaps far more than the right happening. The possibility of mishaps is much greater. Secondly, the creation of uterus within the female. That uterus is very complicated thing, and that uterus itself provides the second danger of darkness, because uterus is full of antibodies which do not like an extraneous matter to enter the uterus and be accepted by the whole body. Our system of defense within ourselves provides us with the with the provision of antibodies. Now, these antibodies are again a very complicated affair. It's impossible for me to describe all of this here, but we should, ordinary viewers should understand that these antibodies take care that no foreign extraneous matter enters the body without being destroyed by the antibodies. And when the male sperm enters the uterus, the same is the reaction released. So a bombardment of antibodies constantly threatens the embryo to be aborted. If God had not taken special measures to counter this attack, childbirth could not be possible. No childbirth anywhere could be possible. So the scientists are now peeping into whole of this scheme of things, and they're amazed at these antibodies being fought back by the antibodies in the uterus. So a full war goes on throughout the 9 months. And then the third layer of darkness is the placenta. And the same thing is true of placenta. If placenta was not provided with all its potential to retain the embryo and was well timed for its development, if even the slightest mishap could happen to the ovary of a female, uterus and placenta membrane or other things, the attachment of the placenta within the uterus, they are all mishaps which should normally happen, because this is the challenge of darkness. But Allah has designed all these things in a manner that although the threat is there, but it is frustrated. Now the cord we mentioned, which attaches placenta with the uterus, that cord draws all the blood and things from mother to take care of the embryo. If that placenta is attached in the wrong place in the uterus, if it were to happen by chance, it should happen much more often that it is attached in the wrong place. And when it is attached in the wrong place, then the embryonic child could not be delivered when it develops fully, because the placenta, in that case when it is wrongly placed, would threaten the very child which is yet to be born, and also threaten the life of the mother. So the third darkness is very easily seen in this working of the placenta and how it is attached. People do not know where it could be attached and why it should be attached there, but they know one thing, that some mothers who have placenta previa, their attachment to the uterus is close to the neck of the uterus from where the child is delivered. And when it begins to extend and prepare for the delivery, the placenta is either broken in a manner that the bleeding starts and it cannot stop before the child is delivered. That bleeding can most often kill the mother and the child, of course. And secondly, the cord of the placenta could entangle the child itself in a manner that his neck will be wrapped as if by a strong cord, and the child will have no means to breathe after that. So whatever it is, it's a delivery of a dead fetus. Live child cannot be delivered. So this goes for the placenta, which is the third cover, as mentioned in the Holy Quran. When I said no human could at that time imagine these things, he could have been told by people that placenta always comes out and the child is enwrapped in that. But he could not have known that all these three things have a darker aspect about them, has a threatening image. And because of their threatening character, it is said, fi zulumat thalath. See? And because the Holy Quran projects it as a great wonder, so it's not an ordinary statement. Everybody could say children are created in 3 sacks. But how could it indicate the existence of God and His creative wonders? Unless we ponder over the words Zulumat Salas and detect these things from there. Have I said too much for you to translate, or have you taken notes of all this?
I did take notes.
Good. I overburdened him with all these Salasa Zulumat and things.
This has become
But he still is a healthy embryo develops within. Please.
يقول حاتم المؤمنين مفسرا هذه الآية القرآنية من سورة الزمر، وكان الأخ عبد الرحمن سأله فقط عن ظلمات 3، وعلق حاتم المؤمنين وقال من المفروض أن تذكر أيضا لماذا هذه 8 أزواج من الأنعام هي الأخرى قد ذكرت، ويفسر حاتم المؤمنين ويقول يجب علينا أن نفهم المغزى من ذكرها خصوصا في هذه الآية. فالأنعام لماذا نرى أن الله سبحانه وتعالى اختصها بالنزول ولم يختص يعني بقية الحيوانات بالنزول؟ لماذا؟ لأن هنالك حكم، ويفسر حضرة أمير المؤمنين من زاوية ما ذكر في القرآن الكريم، ويقول أن الله سبحانه وتعالى لما يذكر شيء أنه أنزله، معنى ذلك أن فيه رحمة وفيه فوائد كثيرة للإنسان، ليس فقط ولكن قد هذه الأشياء التي ينزلها الله سبحانه وتعالى تكون لها أعلى رتبة يستفيد منها الإنسان. ثم يقول حاتم المؤمنين لكن هنا نرى أن يعني الأنعام التي يعني استفاد منها الإنسان كثيرا عبر تاريخه وعبر نموه نجدها 4 أقسام فقط، منها الجمال والبقر والغنم وبعض أقسام الخيل. ويقول حاتم المؤمنين لماذا ذكرت هنا 8؟ لأن الزوجة أيضا أو الأزواج عدت في هذه المعادلة، لذلك كانت النتيجة الأخيرة 8. ثم يقول حاتم المؤمنين كيف يتصور إنسان أن تنزل هذه الأنعام من السماء، ولماذا لم يعني يذكر الله سبحانه وتعالى أنه مثلا أنزل الأسود أو أنزل الثعابين أو أنزل يعني حيوانات أخرى، ولماذا اختص فقط هذه الأنعام؟ يؤكد حضرته ويقول أنها فيها فائدة يعني فريدة من نوعها للإنسان. وأنتم تعرفون كيف أنه في تاريخ الإنسانية استعمل الإنسان هذه الحيوانات لغذائه أيضا ليتنقل وأيضا للباسه، واستعملها يعني في مجالات عدة. فلذلك الله سبحانه وتعالى لما ذكرها أنه فعلا أنزلها كانت لها هذه الفائدة الفائقة جدا. ثم يقول
Didn't I give you time to translate the first part?
No.
Separate time?
No.
Oh. Now, how much time did I take to explain all this?
I think 15 minutes or so. About 15 or 20 minutes.
About 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So there will still be time for some question after you have translated.
I hope so, yes.
All right, please.
أواصل الترجمة. يقول حاتم المؤمنين لماذا ذكرت هذه، يعني قد فسرنا هذه 8 لماذا ذكرت، وأيضا يقول حاتم المؤمنين يعني هذه المخلوقات يعني بالتحديد ذكرها الله سبحانه وتعالى، وذكر أيضا أقسام أخرى مثل الجمادات. وبالنسبة للإنسان ذكر الله سبحانه وتعالى شخص واحد، سوف أفسر لحضراتكم ذلك فيما بعد، أنه اختصه الله سبحانه وتعالى بالنزول. إذن هنالك أقسام مختلفة اختص الله سبحانه وتعالى على يعني أحسن أو الذي يتحصل على أعلى رتبة من ذلك القسم اختصه الله سبحانه وتعالى بالنزول. ويقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين أنه مثلا انظروا إلى الأنعام في حد ذاتها، كيف أن الإنسان استغلها في حرث الأرض، وأيضا قد أنه يعني فعلا قد يعني يستفيد كثيرا من غذائها، من لبنها ومن جلدها وإلى غير ذلك. ويقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين بدونها لا نستطيع أن نتصور الحالة التي نحن عليها في أيامنا هذه من تقدم تكنولوجي ولا غيرها، فإنها لعبت دورا هاما لا يستطيع أي فرد على وجه المعمورة أن ينكرها. ويقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين هذه النقطة لوحدها تكفي أولئك الملحدون الذين دائما ينكرون وجود الله سبحانه وتعالى، كيف أنه ذكر هذه الأمور يعني بالتفصيل منذ 14 قرنا. ثم يقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين الماء أيضا قد ذكر أنه ونزل من الله سبحانه وتعالى، وأيضا ذكر الحديد أنه نزل. ولكن يؤكد حضرة أمير المؤمنين هنا ويقول انظروا، إذا بالنسبة لي يعني مثال الحديد، من المفروض كما تعرفون الذهب غالي جدا وله قيمة أكثر بكثير من الحديد، ولكن الله سبحانه وتعالى لم يختصه بالنزول. ولماذا اختص الحديد؟ لأن هنالك عبرة، لأن الحديد نافع جدا في تقدم يعني العجلة الاقتصادية للإنسان، ولا نستطيع أن نتصور خصوصا ما وصل إليه الإنسان حتى في إلى يومنا هذا من تقدم تكنولوجي وعلمي بدون مساعدة الحديد. ثم يفسر حضرة أمير المؤمنين ويقول كان من المفروض على أولئك الذين يؤكدون على ضد هذا أن الله سبحانه وتعالى يذكر أن الذهب والفضة هو يعني أن أنزلهما من السماء، ولكن هذا يؤكد لقيمة الحديد. ثم بعد أن فسر حضرة أمير المؤمنين هذه الظروف المختلفة يقول دائما هنالك أقسام مختلفة، إما لمخلوقات أو لجمادات الله سبحانه وتعالى يختار الذي يتحصل على الرتبة الأولى أو المرتبة الأولى أو تكون له تلك الأولوية والفوقية على بقية الكائنات أو الجمادات ويختصها بالرحمة خصوصا، يجب عليها أن تكون يعني جميع الإنسانية تستفيد منها مثل ما ذكرت الأنعام والحديد والماء. ولما نأتي في مجال الناحية الروحانية والمادية نرى أن البشر الوحيد أو الشخص الوحيد الذي ذكر أنه نزل من الله سبحانه وتعالى هو حضرة محمد المصطفى صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. وهذه يعني هذا لم يكن من باب الصدفة، ولكنه لأنه كان أحسن نبي لله سبحانه وتعالى وأحسن بشر عرفته الإنسانية، فلذلك اختصه الله سبحانه وتعالى بلفظ النزول. لماذا؟ لأن جميع الإنسانية ستستفيد إلى يوم يبعثون من بركات ومناهل محمد المصطفى صلى الله عليه وسلم، ليس فقط من الناحية الروحانية ولكن حتى في حياتهم اليومية، وهذا هو مفهوم النزول حسب نصوص القرآن الكريم. ثم تطرق حضرة أمير المؤمنين للسؤال الثاني للأخ عبد الرحمن الذي يتحدث على ظلمات ثلاث، ثم يقول حضرته أنني سأدخل بعمق في تفسير هذه النقاط من الناحية العلمية، ولكنني سأكتفي بالتلميح والإشارات فقط، لأنه ربما بعض السادة المشاهدين الأفاضل ليست لهم دراية كافية بهذه الأمور الطبية والعلمية فتكفيهم هذه الإشارات. ثم يقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين أن الظلمات الثلاث التي تتعلق بعملية تطور الجنين في رحم أمه يجب علينا أن نفهمها، أي بأنها مراحل نمو ذلك الجنين. فهنالك المرحلة الأولى التي تلقح فيها البويضة، ثم بعد ذلك هنالك المرحلة الثانية التي يوجد فيها ذلك الجنين في غلاف أو كرة معينة ما يسمى بالبلاسنتا، والمرحلة الثالثة والهامة هو ذلك الحبل الذي يوصل الحبل
third.
أوكي. ويؤكد حضرتك يقول البلاسنتا
Uterus is the second. Uterus. The placenta is the third.
and the first
is body.
yes. يقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين أن أول مرحلة هي مرحلة الجسم، والمرحلة الثانية هي جسم الأم أو رحم الأم، والمرحلة الثالثة هي ذلك يعني ذلك ما يسمونه بالبلاسنتا الذي يبقى فيه أو وأيضا يمد ذلك الجنين بما يحتاجه من أغذية. يقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين إذا رأينا هذه المراحل الثلاثة وهذه الظروف الثلاثة لتكوين الجنين سنفهم هذه الظلمات. والظلمات في الحقيقة يقول حضرته هي المخاطر التي تهدد حياة الجنين في كل لحظة وفي كل دقيقة، فلذلك يعني أشار إليها الله سبحانه وتعالى بأنها ظلمات لأنها تحتوي على مخاطر عدة. ويقول حضرة من المؤمنين هنالك يعني إمكانيات مختلفة ليكون هنالك نوع من يعني مخاطر مختلفة في خلال هذه العملية. لماذا؟ لأن في جسم الأم بالتحديد وفي رحمها هنالك يعني إمكانية عدم إنجاب البويضة، لأن كان هنالك خلل هرموني أو خلل من أي نوع آخر لا تستطيع الأم أن تنجب تلك البويضة التي تكون بصحة جيدة ويمكن أن تلقح من المني وتنجب ذلك الجنين بصحة جيدة. فهنالك إمكانيات مختلفة في جسم الأم في حد ذاتها أن لا تستطيع أن تنجب تلك البويضة السليمة. ثم يقول حضرة المؤمنين هذا من ناحية، وهنالك يعني عواقب كثيرة ومختلفة، ويصعب علي شخصيا يقول حضرته أن أدخل في تفاصيل هذه الأمور، وأرجو أن السادة المشاهدين الأفاضل يكتفوا بهذا التلميح وبهذه الإشارة. ثم يقول حضرته هنالك أيضا إمكانية عدم الحمل أيضا هي الأخرى كبيرة حتى في بداية هذه المراحل. فالرحم يقول حضرته فيه أمور كثيرة معقدة جدا، وفيه ظلمات، وأيضا فيه جهاز مناعة يرفض يعني أي جسم خارجي. فرحم الأم فيه هذه الطبيعة الموجود فيه، يرفض أي جسم يعني غريب عن جسم المرأة. فلذلك خلال عملية التلقيح هذه يرفض حتى يعني ذلك المني من الرجل، فيصعب على يعني تكون هذه يعني مخاطر أو إمكانية عدم الحمل. ولكن الله سبحانه وتعالى يترك أو يعني يجعل من هذه المعركة أو من هذا الحرب لمدة 9 أشهر، ثم ينجب ذلك المولود بصحة جيدة إن شاء الله. ويقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين في البداية يعني حتى في بداية عملية التلقيح هذه هنالك إمكانية لا بأس بها كي يطرد جسم أو يعني بالتحديد رحم المرأة هذه البويضة الملقحة في تلك البداية. وهذه الحرب يعني تبدأ من هناك، والإمكانية كبيرة جدا في درد ذلك الجسم الغريب من يعني من جسم المرأة. والتهديد يعني موجود في خلال 9 أشهر، وأي خلل يحدث يمكن أن يعني يضمحل ذلك المولود الجديد. ولكن الله سبحانه وتعالى يحافظ على الحياة بطريقة عجيبة جدا. ثم يقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين النقطة الثالثة الأخرى هو ذلك الحبل الذي يوصل الغذاء والهواء للمولود، هو الآخر يسبب خطرا أو ظلمات أيضا على المولود، إذ هنالك بعض السيدات يعني مصبنا ببعض الخلل أو بوجود هذا النظام البلاسنتا وغيره في مكان قريب من فم الرحم. فخلال عملية الولادة يمكن أن ينزل من المرأة كثير من الدم ولا تستطيع أن تراقب ذلك، وهي الأخرى تكون حياتها مهددة بالخطر، والمولود أيضا يولد ويكون هذا الحبل دائرا حول عنقه، فهنالك إمكانية هو الآخر أن يتوفى. يقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين هذه الظلمات المختلفة هي التي أشار إليها القرآن الكريم، ونحاول أن نعطيكم بعجالة تلميحا لها. ويعني النقطة الأخيرة التي قالها حضرة أمير المؤمنين كيف يتصور إنسان الذين لا يؤمنون بالقرآن الكريم كيف أن شخص في الجزيرة العربية منذ 14 قرن يذكر هذه الأمور بالتفصيل التي إلى غاية يومنا هذا لا زال الخبراء والدكاترة يبحثون عن ماهيتها.
جزاكم الله. Very good. Very difficult task. You performed so well. Please.
عبد الرحمن.
Also, could you kindly
You
add?
see, he's so kind to you now. He's giving you his time now to consume for the whole of the class.
So could you kindly add the metaphorical sense of the ظلمات الثلاث?
Metaphorical sense, what is the meaning of ظلمات الثلاث?
I've already explained. You mean religious?
Yes, spiritual sense.
Spiritual and religious. That is perhaps, I think, this is a very good question, and I've thought of that before, that man is threatened to fail to recognize the purpose of his birth by his own personal ignorance. That could be one darkness cover which would keep him away from the truth. The second would be that Satan would try to mislead him, and everything he is provided with by God will be told by Satan that it was by chance, it was created by chance. God has nothing to do with it. So that is the second cover of darkness against which man should be cautious and very should defend himself from the Satan's inspirations, as the Holy Quran has forewarned us about that, not only in this verse, but in other verses as well. So man's personal ignorance, the child as is born, he doesn't know the world around, he doesn't know how he was created, who created him. This is the first darkness. The second is created by Waswas al-Khannas, al-Waswas al-Khannas. And he goes on breathing into you different things which is wrong, which is no bearing with the realities. And the third one is when the Prophet comes and brings light, that is the time of the spiritual delivery. Like in children, that's the time when he can be considered as live child or dead child. So when the prophets come, some people do not accept the new birth. They do not understand the importance of a new delivery, which is a spiritual delivery which has been mentioned in the Holy Quran. So they prefer to recede into death and remain dead, like the embryo dies within the uterus. So this is so often, this happens so often, and the Quranic metaphor always refers to such people as apparently living but actually dead, and refers to others as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is mentioned addressing those who believe. Come to me, I'll make you live. I give you the breath of life. So if they were not there, how could they be addressed as such? So evidently he is speaking of metaphorical life. So as far as the metaphor goes, the third danger which enwraps man is the danger of his being deaf and dumb to the voice of prophets of Allah, who call them, beckon them towards him to give them new life. So the simile is perfectly overlapping the material happenings in the uterus and around them. Right? Now, the Imam Sahib has reminded me that there is a janaza which I have to attend before the Zuhr Namaz. But that could be done within the 15 minutes which are left to us. But the family of the deceased person, gentleman, is awaiting my return to my office so that they could come and meet me. And that is an emotional gathering which sometimes takes more than 10 minutes or so. So I should seek leave of you now and attend to them, and having said my 4 rakats of sunnah, then I'll be able to be in time for janaza and Zuhr prayer. Right? Jazakumullah. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you so much.